Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC-Mura here, and today we're gonna be talking about the future, and the future is most likely going to be a Street Fighter 6 game, and I wanted to do a roster prediction of sorts. And I know this could have been fun if I had done it on stream, but obviously with stream you get comments and I'll have to talk back and forth with the stream chat, and I wanted it to be a little bit more focused, so we're doing it as a YouTube video. And when we talk about Street Fighter 6, I'm gonna set some rules that we will have to play around with, right? If I was to design Street Fighter 6, I would say that we would get a 24 characters launch roster, right? So I imagine that we're gonna launch with 24 characters, and then we're gonna add 6 characters as the first season of DLC. So year 1 would end with 30 characters on the base roster. I feel like that is a pretty realistic goal and should be achievable. Now obviously since it's a new game, they're gonna have a bunch of new characters as well, right? So I'm gonna imagine that out of the 24, we're gonna have at least 4 newcomers. Now we know that Luke is already one of them, right? Luke is already one of the newcomers, so I'm gonna count him as one of the newcomers. So we're pretty much gonna talk about 20 launch characters, 20 returning launch characters, and I think if we're talking about realistic season 1 DLC, then I'm thinking maybe we will have 5 returning characters and 1 new one, or 2 and 4, but I'm gonna keep it to 5 returning characters, right? So we're mostly gonna be talking about 20 returning characters in the base roster, 5 who will return as DLC in Season 1, some might return down the line in the later seasons, and obviously others who I don't think are gonna make it whatsoever. And let's get some of them right out of the way, right? We know that Ryu is gonna be in the game, Ken, and obviously Chun-Li, right? These 3 I think are a lock-on. They're gonna be pretty much a part of every Street Fighter game that is going to release in the future, and I think Chun-Li even more so than Ken. Capcom have been heavily pushing Chun-Li as a female face of Street Fighter, and Chun-Li and Ryu have been in a ton of crossovers at this point, so I think it's fair to say that they're gonna make it. So let's now talk about who might make the launch roster. And when I think of Street Fighter 6, I think that they will wanna introduce some of the fan favorites that maybe didn't get the chance to be in Street Fighter 5 or didn't really get to make it. So obviously one of the characters who I would imagine they will put early on is gonna be Makoto, because this is a character that have been heavily requested. A lot of people wanted Makoto in the game, obviously, and she is a fan favorite. I think Makoto in Street Fighter 5 was hard to implement because Laura already exists, and Laura does a lot of what Makoto does. And obviously then you have Mika, maybe Alex even, there's a lot of crossover with what Makoto wanna do with the other characters, so maybe not putting her in Street Fighter 5 was good thing for her, so she could make the launch roster of Street Fighter 6. And on that note, I would also add Crimson Viper. I think Viper is I could bet 100% that Viper will be a launch roster character in Street Fighter 6. I have a very strong feeling on this one. She is an amazing, cool character, and I do think I would like to see Capcom tackle her again, give her a technical moveset. She's a fan favorite, obviously, even though not that many people played her in 4 because she was very technical. I do think she is well liked overall. So now we have 5 characters so far. So now you have to really think about who would make sense, right? Who would make sense? I think when we talk about a base roster like that, you have to consider Grapplers, right? And I still think Zangief is very likely, even though Zangief have kinda been in the game for a long time. He was in Street Fighter 2, Alpha, 4 and 5. Zangief is the Grappler. He's still the most popular Grappler out from all, and I would think that Capcom would wanna keep him in the game, to be honest. A lot of people love playing Zangief. Even right now, when Zangief is kind of like a weaker character, he's still very popular. Everyone loves Gief. So Gief is gonna make it. The 4 evil bosses, the 4 Street Fighter 2 bosses, I don't imagine that M. Bison is gonna be in the launch roster. Since Luke inclusion, and there have been like reports from Capcom that Street Fighter 5 already, some of it takes place after Street Fighter 3, and with Luke and them confirming that Luke is a Street Fighter 6 character, I don't imagine they're going for a reboot or a time skip actually. So I think we're gonna maintain some of these characters, and with that in mind, I think they will wanna keep Bison like as a dead character for a little bit. So I imagine Street Fighter 5, probably will be the last we see for Bison, at least for a little while. But I do imagine that Claw or Vega would make the returning characters. Balrog, not so much. I would probably put another boxer in there, but I can see Vega making it in, because Vega is one of the very unique characters in the Street Fighter series. So I think Vega is likely. I also think Cammy and Guile are also highly likely, because these two are very popular characters. These 5, let's put them together. These are pretty much the household names of Street Fighter, the franchise in general, right? These are probably the most recognized characters, and I would add Zangief with them. Capcom will want to keep brand recognition. I don't see Capcom ever pulling Street Fighter 3 and completely changing the roster. They will have a bunch of interesting characters, I'm pretty sure, but they still wanna keep what's familiar and what the mainstream knows. And let's then talk about some of the others. I do actually expect that Fei Long will be in the game. And why is that? I think the main reason for this is that Capcom will likely, and this is my prediction, Capcom will likely try to distance itself from Street Fighter 5 and 4. Street Fighter 5 and 4 have kind of a similar artistic style in a way, and I can imagine them going with a different art style with Street Fighter 6. I think they have to, pretty much, right? And I can see Fei Long being a really good character to show that off, because he have a lot of theatrics to his movement. Even in Street Fighter 2, Fei Long was one of the most over-the-top strike pose characters, the 1-inch punch, what the? With a flying kick and everything. And obviously Rekkas have been heavily requested in the game, and no one does Rekkas better than Fei Long. He's the OG, and obviously heavily requested, so I can see him being in the launch roster. So right now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 9 characters, we still have 11 more to go. Out of all of these guys, who do I think will make it? This is a long shot. Poison. And why would Capcom go for Poison? I think Poison in 2021 is a perfect character to be in the Street Fighter game. Poison is a very popular character, right? And obviously a lot of people like her, even if they don't play her or think that her gameplay, whatever, maybe like the power level. But I do think Poison is an important character to have, right? You can think of it in terms of the representation of the different communities. I do feel like in that regard, especially in 2021, obviously you do may have to think like maybe Poison, maybe Eagle, right? Because they do represent these communities, so they are likely to make it. But Poison is the much known character from these communities, so I can see Poison being like the LGBT representation, right? I can see that. And obviously she's a very popular and awesome character, right? I don't think people will have issues with Poison being in the main roster of the game. I think that would be a popular choice actually, and she's well liked. Who else would we go for? I would put Dudley. I would put Dudley in the game as well, because we have had Balrog for a good while. Shadaloo is pretty much non-existent now, and I do think it's time to actually bring Dudley back, and I would redesign Dudley a little bit. If I was to bring back Dudley, he's one of the characters that I do think needs a bit of a makeover to how he looks and how he plays. Obviously keep what's cool about the characters, the aesthetic, keep it classy and everything, but again, just like Fei Long, he's one of the characters with a lot of theatrics to him, so I can see him being a really good character to show off an interesting art style. Let's go with one of the other characters. I want to talk about one of the Street Fighter V characters, and from all of these guys, and I know that many of you guys don't like him, I really do, but I do think Rashid is gonna make it. I think from all of the Street Fighter V newcomers, Rashid and Laura are probably the most popular. Minette is popular as a character, not so much gameplay wise. Her gameplay is kinda alienating, but Rashid is a character that I do think Capcom will also want to include. Again, push for diversity, push for Street Fighter V or Street Fighter in general have always been about world warriors, characters from everywhere, so you want to have a diverse roster, right? And Rashid is a good character. I do think people like Rashid in general. They are kind of sick of him being very strong, but I do think he is well liked as a character. I believe so, at least. So I would actually put Rashid in the launch roster. And then who else could we include? I think from the Street Fighter roster, G is likely to make it, and I think there is a very good chance that G is actually the evil boss of Street Fighter 6. I think this is actually likely, or at least one of the contributing factors in the storyline. So I can see G actually returning, obviously a fan favorite as well, so I can see him being in the game. Now with all of these characters, all of these are fan favorites, all of these are very popular, you will have to think that for a launch roster, they will try to introduce some characters who might have some unique gameplay ideas, or characters that may not be very enticing to people to pay money for, right? And I do think, for example, Gen is actually one of these characters, right? I think that Gen is one of these characters who people may not necessarily want to pay for, but if he is in the launch roster, I don't think that many people will get excited, but he is a very technical character. There is a lot to him. He can fill the technical character slot that many rosters need at launch, right? And obviously he also fulfills the old man spot, which is very cool. Kung Fu, a lot of things that Gen can fulfill, right? And then who else would we put in there? A very long shot actually. A very long shot. But I would put Maki in Street Fighter. This is a character I've actually wanted for a while. And I feel like most of the Final Fight playable characters have already made it in Street Fighter games at one point or another, but Maki is still yet to make it. Lucia was one of the few characters who didn't, but I think Maki is the only one left now. Obviously Hagar didn't actually make it in Street Fighter, but he was in Marvel vs. Capcom. Maki was in CVS, so maybe that's kind of the thing, but I still think she needs to be in there. Let's take a look at what we have now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 2. So we are 16. So we still have 4 more spots, right? I'm gonna look for a zoning character. And you know what? I think the classic works, right? I think Dalsim works. Again, one of the characters people may not be buying. No one will buy Dalsim as a DLC character. But he has a place in the game, obviously. He represents a very important archetype, and I do think people will be excited to have him in this game. Now, looking at all of this, right, we probably need a quick grappler, right? And from all of the roster, we have Armika, and we have Laura, and we have El Fuerte, right? And these are pretty much our fast grapplers. Or maybe you can talk about Abel. If it was my expectation, I would actually expect Abel to return as the returning character, as like the pseudo fast grappler, right? He is one of these characters who I think was a little bit boring in Street Fighter 4. At least not many people liked him, but I can see him being redesigned, or at least they could like take another shot at him, try to mix him up, kind of like what they did with Mika in this game, changing her a lot from the alpha games. So I can see them doing that. And finally, obviously, we need still need one character that will make people happy, and that's Judy. Judy is way too popular of a character to be left out of the launch roster now. I think Judy is like one of the iconic females of the game. I think honestly, popularity wise now, Judy is up there with Chun-Li and Cammy, right? And she will totally make people happy just by being in the game. With all of that left, with all of that said, there's one character slot left, right? Now we are at 19, we need one more. And honestly, I would go for Akuma. I know that Akuma is like the for many guys who don't like shotos, Akuma's like the boring choice. But honestly, Akuma is a household name. Ryu, Akuma, and Ken, like these are Street Fighter, right? These are Street Fighter characters. Now remember, I said that Luke will be one of the 4 new characters. So now obviously I can't predict the new characters or who will they be. So that is pretty much it. And I do think this is a pretty well balanced roster, all things considered. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 females, 13 males, and I do imagine that they will have at least like one new female character. So maybe we can talk about like out of 24, we want to make it so like there's like 8 to 10 females, and we have like 10 to 12 males. I think that's kind of a decent ratio, all things considered. This roster, in my opinion, will balance things out because you have almost every style, and obviously we're gonna have some newer characters that they will implement, and I imagine that we're gonna take some interesting ideas with them. Now let's talk about Season 1 DLC. And Season 1 DLC is probably very important for a fighting game, right? Because you wanna put some characters in that will make people happy, that you know that people are excited for. Maybe they don't fit the vision that you have for the launch roster, but you know will make people happy. And if we're talking about that, I would absolutely put, you know what? I will put Laura as a Season 1 DLC character. Because out of all of the Street Fighter 5 cast, I'm pretty sure that Rashid and Laura are the most popular. After Ed, Laura is the most played character or newcomer from the Street Fighter 5 series. So I can see Laura being the first character, right? And then you would want to put someone that people also kinda miss, that they haven't used in a while, and maybe they wanna try again. And for that spot, I will put Gouken, right? Gouken is one of these characters who I do think will get redesigned. If Gouken is to be returning to a Street Fighter game, he will be redesigned. At least that's what I think. And he is a character that people have been asking for in Street Fighter. They can bring him back. I think it's kind of fitting at this point, and I would actually love to see it. Who could we add next? You know, it's very difficult at this point without coming off as some sort of a bias, but I do think that Guy could come back, and he's also one of the characters who will probably get redesigned. Since they tackled Zeku, they made Zeku a kind of a mix of Guy with some new ideas. I can see Guy being a returning character, but he will also get redesigned. Laura will not change that much, I imagine. Gouken and Guy absolutely will get redesigned if they come back. And obviously at this point, Guy would be the master of Bushin Ryu, and I expect him to be like I want to see like you know how they did the like the hot Ryu thing with him with a beard and him being like more gruff. I can see them pulling something of the sort with Guy. I would absolutely love to see it. And then we have 2 more slots, and this is where it starts kind of becoming difficult. But I would imagine that they will put a character in there that is kind of a return to form, but also a character that we haven't seen in a while, right? So I would imagine I would put a character like Yan in there, Yan or Yang, right? But I do think Yan would be interesting. Yan is one of these characters who always dominated every game he have been in. Obviously Street Fighter 3, Third Strike, and Street Fighter 4, Arcade Edition, and the Ultra Street Fighter 4 even, he was very strong. I would actually like to see Yan in the Street Fighter game again. Him working will rely a lot on what the system mechanics favor, but I can see him obviously being a very cool character in general. And the final spot that I would put in there for the Season 1 DLC character, I think it's just gonna be Sagat, because he's one of the more popular characters of the brand, right? And you don't wanna alienate the people who like the character. I don't think you need to blue ball the people who like Sagat into a very late spot, kind of like what you did in Street Fighter 5. I think he kinda deserved to be early on. Maybe even like the first DLC character, and you can have Laura later on, and I would actually add another female as a brand new character. This is what I would do personally. If we're talking later down the line, these are the characters who I can see returning, and one of them obviously will be Balrog. I think Balrog is very highly likely. I think Nash is very unlikely at this point. I don't think Birdie is gonna make it. Eagle, I don't imagine. Adon, I probably can see him coming back. Sodom, not really. Rose is likely. Sakura is obviously very likely to come back. I would also bring back Armika in like Season 2 or Season 3, maybe a little bit later. I would bring back Cody. I would bring back, from these guys, I would bring back Sean. Because if this is post Street Fighter 3, I think it's a really good spot to have him later down the line. From the Street Fighter 4 cast, I would actually like to see them tackle the El Fuerte character one more time and maybe try to redesign him, because El Fuerte I think is one of these characters who I think there is a good. I think Street Fighter needs a Luca Libre wrestler in there. I know that Mika's supposed to be the Luca Libre, but not really. Mika's more about more power than athleticism. I should say. But who does the flips, the Hurricane Ranas, and all of that stuff? El Fuerte. So I would like actually to see El Fuerte, but they need to redesign him in a way or two, I think. I would also like to see Hugo back, but also redesigned. I don't want to see the old Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter 4 Hugo. I think that version of him, nah, I don't see it. I don't see it happening, to be honest. And who else could we add? I would like to see these two. Believe it or not, I would actually like to see these two. I would like to see a redesign to Ed, at least visually, and Falk as well, obviously. I would like to see where their story will go. I want to see this too because I want to see where their story will go. And I imagine that Capcom is gonna follow on that, but they're gonna touch them up a little bit or change them up a little bit. Maybe if they made them like motion characters, it will change their identities a little bit. But I do wanna see like how they would play. I think that to me that would be very interesting. I also think that Minat is a likely character to make a return. And obviously I don't imagine we will see Kage, but the Evil Ryu variant is like that's very likely, obviously. Like that's Street Fighter, right? So I imagine we will see an Evil Ryu style character in the game. And this one is a very off chance. Like this is a very off chance, but I can see maybe again a redesigned T-Hawk making it in, right? I think with all of that being said, we do have an interesting character roster here. This is 20 characters for the base roster, 24 and 30 if you include the season 1 DLC, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we're talking about like 44 characters for the Street Fighter 6 lifespan. I think that is kind of realistic, since Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5 kinda ended around the same roster number, 44, 45. I do think that is a likely number to end the game life cycle on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think any of these guys should have... Did I forget anyone that you think should make the cut? I know some people might like Remy, but you know, I don't see it, to be honest. I think Thess is a very hard character to call back. Rufus, maybe, just because, like, I don't know, but I would like to see Yun over Rufus, to be honest. And I do think most of people would probably like to see Yun over Rufus. Yang, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Ibuki, yeah, again, maybe, maybe not. I do think she's kind of a popular character, but she just got redesigned in Street Fighter 5. She was in Street Fighter 4. She was in Street Fighter 3. So I don't know. Overall, these are my picks. If it was up to me to make Street Fighter 6, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.